Now an opportunity to speak about our Torah reading in Haftorah and a short teaching this morning from the Talmud. Our Torah reading is the same as yesterday. So this is one of those groundhog days where we repeat to get it better the second day. The first Torah reading is Leviticus chapter 22, beginning verse 26, and then continues to the end of chapter 23. And in chapter 23, describes the three pilgrimage holidays, the days that are Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And remarkably, the description of Sukkah, Sukkot, is the longest of those descriptions. So let me read to you what it says about this day. Say to the Israelite people, on the 15th day of this 7th month, there shall be the Feast of Booths, Chag HaSukkot, to the Lord to last 7 days. The first day shall be a sacred occasion. You shall not work at your occupations. 7 days you shall bring gifts to the Lord. On the 8th day you shall observe a sacred occasion and bring gifts to the Lord. It is a solemn gathering. You shall not work at your occupations. So a pause. In the Bible, Sukkot is 7 days, but only the first day is a day of no work. Unlike Pesach, where it's the first and the 7th days of no work, here it's only the first day. But the 8th day is called Shmini Atzeret, and on that 8th day, then you should not do any work. In our contemporary times, as it's played out rabbinically, the 7th day is called Hoshana Rabbah, in which we will do 7 circles around the sanctuary normal times. Hal will be joining me a week from today, a week from Friday, Hoshana Rabbah on Friday at 8 in the morning. We'll do an earlier service, probably 8 to 9:30, knowing some people are working, for the 7th day. And now it continues, the Torah reading. These are the set times of the Lord that you shall celebrate as sacred occasions, bringing gifts to the Lord, burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and libations, fluid offerings. On each day, what is proper to it, apart from the Sabbaths of the Lord, and apart from your gifts and from all your votive offerings, that's the things that you smell, and from all your freewill offerings that you give to the Lord, mark on the 15th day of the 7th month. That's the beginning of Sukkot. When you have gathered in the yield of your land, you shall observe the festival of the Lord to last 7 days, a complete rest on the first day and a complete rest on the 8th day. A little repetition here for emphasis. On the first day, and now comes to the description of Sukkot, you shall take the product of hadar trees. In our Eitz Chaim, it does not get translated. Literally, hadar means beautiful, hadar trees, which the rabbis will understand as the etrog trees, branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall observe it as a festival of the Lord for 7 days in the year. You shall observe it in the 7th month as a law for all time throughout the ages. You shall live in booths, besukot teshvu. 7 days all citizens in Israel shall live in booths, in order that future generations may know, Ki besukot hashafti et b'nei Yisrael, because in Sukkot I caused to dwell the children of Israel, Behotzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim, in the taking them out from the land of Egypt, Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am the ever-present one, your God. And now the line that Hal chanted the very beginning of our service. Vaydaber Moshe et modei Adonai, and Moses spoke of the sacred times of God, El Bnei Israel, to the children of Israel. So ends chapter 23. Just a couple quick comments, and that is, before I do a little bit more teaching on this paragraph, our maftir reading would have been a description of those bulls that I mentioned. Many bulls on the first day decreasing along with other animals, equaling 70 bulls, 70 nations, so as to say Sukkot has this messianic tone that on Sukkot, post Yom Kippur, the world is prepared for wholeness, and there are some who say it will be on Sukkot that the Messiah will come, and our Haftorahs often have a messianic tone to them on Sukkot. In the case of this morning's Torah reading, though, it's another aspect of Sukkot as a time of celebration, and specifically the dedication of the first temple built by King Solomon, a dedication that takes place on Sukkot with a prayer. These are the words of Solomon. The Lord has chosen to abide in a thick cloud. I have now built for you a stately house, a place where you may dwell forever. And so on Sukkot, the ark is brought to the temple, enabling a quality of, in contrast to the impermanence of the Sukkah, the greater permanence of a place of God's presence symbolically in the first temple. Well, back to this paragraph, the paragraph about Sukkot. We're told we shall dwell in booths 7 days. All citizens call Ezrach, that future generations may know that I made the Israelite people live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt, for I am the Lord your God. In our Eitz Chaim, in a gray, in the box, are the laws, edited by Elliot Dorff. And here is the law that comes out of this passage. One can fulfill this commandment of dwelling in the booth by either sleeping in the sukkah or eating one's meals there during the 7-day holiday. One is exempt from eating or dwelling in the sukkah if the weather or other factors cause undue hardship. Quoting the Talmud in Sukkot 25b to 26a to 29a. I will add that this law has crossed my mind. I don't know about you, but in my sukkah this year is a new problem, and that's mosquitoes. We're having an unusual season of mosquitoes and gnats, in which, as I say it, I can feel on my hand where I was bit this morning. Can see where I was bit. Having covered my body to go into the sukkah, so with long sleeve shirt and socks, making sure I would be better protected than I was the first night in the sukkah. But even there I see that my finger is bitten. So a challenge and a question, how long do you have to sit in your sukkah if you know that you're going to get bitten up? But that's not what I wanted to share. What I wanted to share is a debate, very briefly. You may recall, if you listened to my sermon on Kol Nidre, I talked about Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer is the rabbi who said, the rules are, according to me, about the purity of this oven of Achnai. I can't agree with all your rabbis, all my colleagues. Even heaven will declare it so. And heaven, a voice, a bat kol, an echo from heaven said, Eliezer is right regarding the law. Bottom line, the rabbis excommunicated him for following the majority holding, and it's his student, Rabbi Akiva, who goes and informs him of that ruling. So there's a debate between Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva about an issue of Sukkah. and I thought I would share it. It's the tradition that you're supposed to give the citations. It's not to show off. It's the tradition of honoring the text, that when you cite Talmud or you cite Torah, you are supposed to give the location of the quote. Just like if you quote another rabbi, you're supposed to identify who you're quoting. And the rabbis will up the ante and say in Megillah 29b, I believe, that to quote another rabbi is to bring the Messiah. So here's the debate. Rabbi Eliezer says that what is Sukkah represent? He says that it's not a physical, it's a physical structure, but it's not really that what we're recorded to remember when we're told the Sukkah. What we should remember are the clouds of glory. That when we're in a Sukkah, or even when the Bible actually speaks of the booths, they're not speaking, I'm correcting myself now, that when the Bible spoke of the Sukkah, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's a metaphor. Remember when God provided a protective cloud for you in the desert. And it's his student, Rabbi Akiva, who here says it's an actual booth. Sukkot mamash asu lahem, that God made for them actually booths as well, which is what they are to dwell in. Apparently, Rabbi Akiva, the student, wins this dispute because the context, which is technical, also deals with rules of purity, is what does the covering need to be made from and whether they can transmit impurity or not and be included. And according to Rabbi Eliezer's holding, for whom it's simply the memory of God's protective cloud, it shouldn't matter what the roof is made from because we're only remembering something non-physical. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, it's an actual booth that we're needing to remember. And he actually wins this argument. Here's another case where Rabbi Eliezer loses. And it can only be items that are already cut off from the earth and therefore not susceptible to tumah, to creating the impurity. So I'll pull this together as the teaching of the day. I was sharing this teaching before I began this morning with my wife, Linda, and she said it's kind of like Fiddler on the Roof when they argued, is it a horse, is it a mule? And then they sang tradition. There's that story of the rabbi who comes to a new pulpit, and some of the people stand for the Kaddish, and some people are seated. So he pulls the ritual chair aside at the end of services, and he says, I don't understand. What's the custom of your synagogue? Is it to stand or is it to sit for the Kaddish? To which the ritual chair says, the custom in our congregation is some stand and some sit, and we argue about it. Well, in the Talmud, 2,000 years ago, they argued about Rabbi Eliezer, the teacher, and later Rabbi Akiva. It doesn't mean they argued at the same time, by the way, meaning Rabbi Eliezer could have held his way, and then later Rabbi Akiva said, I didn't agree with my teacher. And in this case, there would be a vote, there would be a holding. And in this case, here too, Eliezer is overridden by his colleagues, and the Sukkah that is understood in our Torah reading is not just a remembrance of a cloud protectively, but is of a physical structure as well. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, then and now there is room to debate. Then and now we have reason to honor those with whom we disagree. May we, as difficult as it may be, remember that we are as one, seeking to honor your ways Amen.